Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Barnard virtually. I'm Christine Valenza Shin, class of '84. I'm Associate Director for Advising and Programs here at Beyond Barnard and also the Alumni Advising Lead. So welcome to our final webinar of this series. Some of you may be joining us for the first time, but I'm looking at the names and seeing most of you have been here once or twice before, if not for every single session. So welcome. And let's see, I didn't think of a question ahead of time to test that you're out there and can hear me, but actually maybe we'll go and ask the very first time, which is, where are you at in your job search? Are you just thinking about it? Are you sort of passively job searching? Or are you actively job searching at this point? So let me know and we'll share a little info up front. Okay, we have one actively job searching, another active job search, okay, I'm going to assume the rest of you can hear me and go ahead and proceed then. So today we're looking at how to grow your worth. Last week we looked at a key to negotiating was knowing your worth. Now we want to talk about growing your worth and how you manage your ongoing professional development once you land that new job. And of course, those of you who are still in jobs, either actively looking for something new or thinking about what comes next, a lot of this advice will apply as well. So we've got a couple more people weighing in. Passively moving towards actively, so in transition. Great. So the key thing about ongoing professional development, especially in the new job that is coming your way soon, a lot of you are hoping, is you need to, the absolute most important thing to do is to get settled in and learn how to do your new job well. The sort of unspoken, or well, I guess I'm speaking it, fundamental issue here is you want to, the number one way you grow your worth and make your professional development a positive thing is to learn how to do your job well and then continue to do your job well. So anytime you make a transition, it can be tricky. So you want to give yourself the time to gain confidence, learn how to do the things they need you to do, bring your skills and experience from prior jobs and fit them in, you know, so that you make sure you're hit the ground running or at least get up to speed relatively quickly. And then you also, anytime you're entering a job, you want to make sure that you understand if there's a probation process, if there's, you know, how a lot of the basics in terms of HR and professional reviews and assessments and salary, you know, you want to know those, you want to get that nuts and bolts information, get that settled in, and then focus on your team, your manager, and yourself doing a great job. But once you are settled, the argument I'm making with this session today is that you need to continue to pay attention to your ongoing career development the way we have been over these last couple of months, or we have been collectively. And so it doesn't have to be constant, and it's obviously not going to be as constant as it is when you're in an active job search, but you do, even when you're relatively new to a job and planning on staying there for a while, you want to keep looking ahead towards your professional development and future opportunities. And these can be future opportunities within the organization you're working for or the company, or it could be within the field in general, or even involve making one or more career transitions down the line. But you want to be, at least on an occasional basis, looking ahead and thinking about some of these issues we've been talking about. So the way we're going to tackle that today is to actually look back at how we've, at some of the topics we've visited in this webinar series. So even if you haven't been to every session or haven't caught up on all the recordings, you don't need to have prior knowledge, but we did look at a variety of topics. I didn't do a separate section on career exploration. That actually might be a series next semester or next year, but we want to talk about that a little bit. We spent 3 different sessions on resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile. And we definitely talked about networking online and in person. We talked about the job search in general, which was towards the beginning, but for today's purposes, I wanted to hit it a little bit later. We discussed interviewing, we discussed negotiating, and today we're discussing ongoing development. So the idea here is, for today, I want to revisit some of these topics and look at them in light of how can you keep a little bit of your focus on these things so that you're in a position for opportunities as they come down the line, as well as next time you do have to do a full out active job search, it should be a little bit easier if you've been paying attention to some of the things as you go along. So let's take a look at some of this. So career exploration, you definitely, we talked briefly at the beginning about 2 parts of career exploration. One is self-assessment, and the other is assessing the what's out there, what's going on in the world of work, and particularly your field. So some opportunities, I mean, you want to, it doesn't mean you're constantly exploring and constantly asking yourself, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? So you're not constantly thinking about change necessarily, but it is about continuing this process that we talked about of looking inside yourself and at first and foremost, what do you most enjoy? What are you most skilled at? And an interesting way of thinking about that is the second bullet, which is how can you bring as much of that into your work as you can? Now, hopefully the job search gave you an opportunity to do that, and you were able to interview for things that were closer and brought in more of what you love to do and are super good at into your job. But once we're in a job, we can also continue to use that lens of how can I delegate some of the stuff that I know, but I don't love as much, and increase the things that I do love and that I do enjoy spending my time on. And if you enjoy something and are really good at it, that's going to really increase your value. It's going to make you a very motivated worker, someone who's happy in her job, and that is super valuable to yourself and super valuable to your organization. So it's definitely worth continuing to think about those things on a practical level. A lot of workplaces, not all, but a lot of workplaces will do, sometimes they'll offer assessments, various things. It could be around communication style, conflict management style, different people bring in different things. It's sometimes done in a retreat setting, sometimes an ongoing professional development. And, I've been in a lot of places. I started out life as a New York City public school teacher, and, we had these mandatory professional development days, and there was always a fair amount of eye rolling that went along with having to do this. But even the New York City Board of Education in the 1980s and early 90s brought in some interesting people from time to time, and even often encouraged peer-to-peer professional development, which was really helpful. So it's a mixed bag, but sometimes these can be valuable, and you can, get something out of it. So certainly take advantage of those if they're related to, just learning more about yourself and your style and your values and your skills and all of those things that go into good career fit. And if you did any career assessments, or perhaps you're going to do some of them with us here at Barnard now that the series is over, hang on to those reports, whether you've got a paper copy or an electronic copy or both. And it's a good habit to get into a couple times a year, or maybe once a year when it's performance review time, to look those over. What did you learn from Myers-Briggs about your personality and how that plays itself out in terms of things you like to do at work and things that are your strengths at work? What did you learn from your interest inventory, and what things motivate you and really like? Did you do a values assessment? Did you do a motivated skills? Any of those that you still have hold of, it's helpful to take a look at those from time to time and just ask yourself that question. Is my job meeting some of these things, some of these expectations, some of these aspects of career fit that are really important to me? Okay. And then another part of career exploration is workforce research. You want to continue to learn about your field. I mean, again, I'll repeat, first and foremost, when you begin a new job, you want to be learning about your team, your division, your organization. But once you're settled in and doing well, you want to keep an eye, again, time to time, doesn't have to be every day, but try and set up a regular thing where you're taking a look at what's going on in the outside world in your field. So certainly keep up. You've got your professional groups on LinkedIn. When we talked about LinkedIn, I encouraged you to join more of them, be on the lookout for them, and certainly you could keep up with them. And then most professions have journals or associations or conferences or websites associated with them. When we were talking briefly about career exploration in the first webinar, I talked about ONET, which is run by a website run by the Department of Labor that gives detailed summaries of different job titles, and the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which looks at exactly that. Is it a growing field? Is it plateauing? Is it stagnating? And you want to also talk to your manager or other leadership within your organization about what's valuable, what skills should you be acquiring, what is important for you to know how to do, and to get their advice, get their insight on what opportunities are out there and how they can support you in getting better and getting better at your job. It could be learning new aspects of it, or it could be gaining actual new skills as things unfold and things develop. Okay. Resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letters. We spent a lot of time on those, and I'm sure once you have a new job, you're grateful to file those away and not have to look at them or tweak them anymore. But I'm here to say that you want to pay a little occasional attention to them. Certainly on your master resume and your LinkedIn profile, you want to add your new position as soon as possible. That's a great way, obviously, of letting people know that you got the job, and letting people know that you're in a different place or have gotten a promotion or whatever the exact situation is. And it also puts you into contact. It could put you into contact with new and different people. So it can help grow your network. And then you don't have to give tons of detail. You could just draw from the job description initially, but then as you continue in the job, you want to add bullets, specific accomplishments, specific skills. And remember, just to refresh your memory, the master resume for your eyes only. So you could add as many bullets as you want. You're trying to capture those sort of special things as they happen. So if you take on a project or you take on a new thing, you just want to capture that. Again, you're not going to be updating and tweaking this in the same way you are when you are actively networking, actively job searching, but checking in on this when you start your new position and then circling back. Again, performance review is not a bad time. If your company or organization does performance reviews, this is a good prompt in general to take a little time to think, check in with where you're at professionally, developmentally wise, and do some of these housekeeping tasks that I'm advising you on. And then what you want to do to help with future cover letters or perhaps tweaking your LinkedIn summary is, whether you're creating a folder on your computer or you still like to file things by paper, you want to have a copy of your professional bio, any performance reviews, any ad hoc notes that you get from could be vendors, could be clients, could be managers. If people say something nice about you, especially something specifically nice about you, keep a copy of it, and think about using that for future cover letters or even for the aforementioned performance review. What do people compliment you on? What specific things are you doing that are gaining notice? And then networking. Again, networking is one of those things we often, it's associated with job searching, but it is definitely something that is ongoing. And there's going to be a couple of slides in this. So you don't want to forget all about LinkedIn just because you're no longer looking for a job. So again, it's not going to necessarily be every day or even every week, but it's helpful to check in from time to time. You might, if you haven't already, connect it to your email so you get notifications of discussions and things like that. But you want to keep adding contacts. As you get to know your new coworkers, you can add them. You don't necessarily need to or want to add them in a rush right at the beginning, but as you get to know people, you can certainly start to add them, both your team members, depending on what the culture is, as well as the larger organization. Keep reading things, following them, liking them. The more you, as we said earlier, are active on LinkedIn, the better it becomes attuned to what you're interested in and sort of sending you things you might like, which is, both creepy and helpful, as is the case with most social media. And you do want to keep those high value contacts, the people you really liked, the people you really admire, the people who were helpful to you along the way. You want to circle back if you get notices about them getting a new job or a promotion. You might, if an article or an event makes them think of you, take those organic opportunities to connect back to them. Again, you're not bombarding any one person constantly, but as people pop up and occur to you, it's, you have that influence. Oh, I should drop her a note, and I'm encouraging you to go ahead and do that. Keep those contacts alive, so that then, should you need them in a professional context, whether it's in a future job search, or they might be able to, you might be able to help them out in some way, refer them to something, or invite them to an event, or to speak on a panel, etc. You've got that sort of ongoing connection to them. And then you want to branch out and think about other social media channels as well. So where is your organization? Are they on all the channels? Do they use one more than others? And again, unless you have a philosophical objection and or an overall, you're just trying to restrict how much you're on social media, think about joining, following your organization, following other key players in the field. And that could be Facebook, it could be Twitter, it could be Instagram, various other outlets. I'm sure there's more to come, so keep an eye on that as well. And then work, of course, in a new job provides a lot of opportunities for ongoing in-person networking. I attended a networking workshop once a number of years back, where the advice was to never eat lunch alone. You should always be eating with other people, which, depending on whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or like myself, when you spend almost your whole day talking to people, is a little overwhelming to think of always having lunch with somebody, because sometimes lunch is a nice break from talking. But it's a good concept, which is that you do want to think about lunchtime or after work time, and make sure that you are at least occasionally connecting with people that you work with, or people that you used to work with, people that are part of the larger organization or a related organization. Again, when you're just starting, often new colleagues will invite you to join them for lunch or for an after work thing. And you don't have to say yes to everything, but it's generally a nice idea to take that opportunity to get to know people a little bit better. It doesn't mean you have to become best friends, or and engage in office gossip on your first day, but it's a nice thing. They're making a gesture, and it's a good opportunity. And then as you become not the newest employee, as others come on board, you can return the favor, include them in a lunch invite. It could be formal, it could be informal, after work things, etc. And I say this, the last suggestion here about connecting in person when you know only someone by email or phone. This is obviously increasingly common, and even at a place like Barnard that is relatively small and prides itself on being warm and homey and supportive, it's amazing how long working here you can go without ever knowing the face on the other side of the email. So I try and I encourage myself. I try, like, once a week or so, to, if I'm out and about on campus, to pop in to wherever it is, purchasing or events management or the Athena Center, and say hello both to people I know already and people who may have come on board or who I've never managed to meet. So that can be a helpful way to connect as well. And then organizationally, there's a lot of things going on. You know, it's hard for me to, I try and sort of address this generally. I know some of you work alone, some of you work in very small organizations, some of you work in huge organizations. So there's the whole gamut out there. But very often there are existing networks at work, very often especially in the corporate world, and especially in traditionally male-dominated fields, there are women's networks. Some of those are active and very valuable. Some of them are more sort of pro forma, but can still be, you know, a helpful thing to join in on. But take a look. We did a panel at Google last year, and apparently there is a group for almost every identity at Google. So there, you know, whether it's racial or sexuality or gender identity or age, you know, apparently, you know, ageism can be an issue in small tech, medium tech, big tech. So there were groups for older Google workers. I don't know if that means 30 or, but I think, no, I think there's people over 40, even over 50 working at Google. But, you know, different organizations have different things. Some of these are formal, some of them are less formal. Ad hoc committees, task forces come up from time to time. If you're super busy, or again, if you're brand new and you're still finding your way, you might not want to jump in on these. But once you're settled in, consider saying yes, at least occasionally, to some of these. You can learn a lot from these about how your organization functions. You get to meet people across departments, across teams, and then you yourself can propose or start a group. The example I use here, it's come and gone, unfortunately, but there used to be a lunchtime knitting group once a week here at Barnard, and I believe it was started by Dean Dorothy Denberg, who some of you will remember, who was dean of the college for many years. And basically, it was a small inner circle. I was never invited. I was too low down. But there were, it was like 5 or 6 people across campus who knitted or crocheted, and they would gather in her office for lunch and knitting. And, you know, it was a power group. So something like that, if you have an interest or, you know, a craft or an interest or a hobby, that's a possibility, you know, to think about starting something like that. And then this actually also comes from a Barnard colleague. If you, you know, you have to be careful about, you probably want to do this with the knowledge of your manager so that they don't take it the wrong way. But if there's a senior person, you know, higher up, either in it could be your boss's boss, it could be somebody higher up in a different division on a different team or a different part of the organization, set up an informational interview with them, just to, you know, and it can be twofold. It could be to learn about other opportunities for yourself within the organization. And again, you have to be careful about how upfront you can be, but hopefully you're working for an organization that supports that idea that you might want to move and grow and move upward within the organization. And also get their perspective on what's going on in the organization as a whole or on the field in general. Somebody who's a little bit higher up or very high up in the organization has a different perspective, has often been around longer, and can give you some good insights into what's going on. And then networking in your field, obviously these opportunities present themselves. Again, does not need to be constant, but it's something to keep an eye on. Clearly, almost everyone is aware, or, you know, there's usually multiple professional organizations, sometimes not multiple, but there's often overlapping professional organizations for almost every role, every field, every subset of a field. And if you are able to attend a big annual conference that many of these organizations hold, that's great. If your company often supports that, that's a great thing to take advantage of. But do also, if your company doesn't support that or doesn't have a lot of money, or you're in a small nonprofit where that's just not part of the budget, look for shorter or more local versions of the big annual conference. One of our major organizations is NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and it focuses on you know, employer relations and recruitment, but also what we do on this side of preparing students for the workplace. And they have a big annual conference. I was lucky enough to attend it for the first time this year, but they also have regional ones where it's not as long and not so far to travel. So definitely something to check out. And in general, these professional organizations and associations do a lot beyond the conferences and the mini conferences. And I'd say to consider a volunteer roles for two reasons. I think we mentioned this in passing a couple times, that if you're a classic introvert, introverts are happy having a role. They're perfectly happy to interact with people if they've got a badge or some specific task to do. So that's something to keep an eye on. And it's also, by taking on a responsibility within the association, it kind of forces you to go. It's interesting how networking, everybody knows they should be doing it, but it's hard when you are working full time or just working hard in general. You've got family obligations, other things happening. It's easy to let some of this go by the wayside. So sometimes actually taking on a role doesn't mean you have to become the president of something, and you obviously have to consider the time. The time impact, but it can be something that helps sort of encourage you to do more of that networking than you might otherwise do. Barnard, as we mentioned, has a lot of opportunities for networking. I'd say both alumni to alumni and alumni to student. So there's a number of different Barnard networking groups. There's certainly a lot of events that go on, and where you certainly can start a group, whether that's regionally, working through alumni relations, or industry-based, working through us. And there's also mentoring programs. Mentoring in a big term. We definitely have traditional one-on-one mentoring programs, which we do the matching early in the year, and so that you have the opportunity to volunteer for that in August into September. A call goes out, but we also do a number of other mentoring opportunities that are less of a time commitment, and you can get into on a rolling basis. So again, if you're interested in helping the people coming behind you, we welcome that, and that can be a good opportunity for yourself as well to again, connect with your field, think about your field, think about helping others succeed in it. And then back to online options, meetups, other online facilitators of gatherings of people in your field, or it's good to keep an eye on those. Okay, job search. This seems counterintuitive. Theoretically, you've just started a new job. Do you want to be job searching? And the answer is no. Generally, you want to settle in and hope that you have picked a place, picked an opportunity that is somewhere where you're going to happily be for 2, 3, or more years. That's awesome. That's especially true if you've jumped around a lot. You want to be thinking about staying, for a while. However, you don't want to ignore other possibilities, and you want to take an occasional, as it says, take an occasional but regular look at what's out there. And that can be helpful. You don't have to apply to anything, but it's just good to sort of see what's going on. It's another way of keeping an eye on what's going on in the field in general. And so if during your job search there was a job board you particularly liked, or you found a good niche site, visit it occasionally. Again, you don't, especially if you don't want to be constantly looking at this, but it's good to pop in. And then we talked also in the job search about creating that list of target companies. Where's your dream company or organization that you'd love to work for? Pencil it into your calendar to check their website from time to time, see if anything opens up that's of interest. And again, even if you don't apply for it, even if you're happy where you are, or you're planning to stay where you are for a while, it can be helpful, again, to see what's available, plan for the future, and just get insight again into what other organizations are doing within your sector, keeping that professional knowledge going. And then some of you will get, through your network or through headhunters, will find out about opportunities. And, I get questions from time to time, like, should I, I'm happy where I'm at. I don't think I want to change, but should I respond? And you absolutely do not have to if you either don't want to tempt yourself or don't have the time. But it can't hurt to at least go through the preliminary stages, find out a little bit more. And sometimes it can be helpful to know if there's a lot of demand out there, if people are interested in your background or your particular skill set. That can help you at your next performance review. It can help you negotiate for a raise, just to know that even if you never say it, to have that confidence that other people are interested in you can help give you that confidence to make sure your current organization is valuing you as well. Okay, well, Interviewing. This is a great thing to keep an eye on because we all, I think, even people who are strong interviews can always do better. So, as you move into your job and as you start your new job and you're in a new organization or a different title, you're still going to get that question in both work, professional and social things. What do you do? So keep working on that. Keep refining that positive. Here's what I do, here's what I like about it, here's what I'm looking for in the future. Possibly you might want to downplay that part depending on where you're at in your new job, but that 30-second pitch of who what you do, what you're interested in is a helpful thing to keep thinking about. And definitely if you get the chance to be on an interview committee, this is really helpful. I've been on a number of them, and it really does help to be on that other side to sort of see both the strengths and the weaknesses that people come through the process with. Even just seeing, people who look great on paper but don't interview well, and vice versa, where someone might not look so good on paper, but somebody brings them in anyway, and it turns out that they really shine when you meet them one-on-one. So it's just helpful to see that and understand how that whole process works. And then if you have opportunities to present or public speak, or if there's a class or a workshop coming up, take advantage of that. Again, even if you feel pretty confident with this, even if you feel like you do a pretty good job on this, and most of us don't, most of us feel slightly, if not grossly uncomfortable doing public speaking, but wherever you are on that spectrum of hating it to loving it to somewhere in between, push yourself outside your comfort zone, take those opportunities, and certainly if you get a chance to improve those skills, think about that. I'll put in a plug. I probably mentioned this when we first talked about interviewing, but and now I'm blanking on the name, the organization that does public speaking. It's relatively inexpensive and it's great, and I'm completely blanking on the name. If any of you know what I'm talking about, and it will come to me. Okay, and then we just last week talked about negotiation skills, but you want to think about improving these as well. You do want to continue gathering salary info. The point I made several times last week is that knowledge is power. The more you know about what the salary range is within your organization, within your field, the better able you are to negotiate effectively on your own behalf. So keep gathering salary information, whether it comes, again, formally or informally. It's helpful to gain that information. And by bringing it up in a diplomatic way, whether you're talking one-on-one to somebody or more broadly, you can help change the culture around talking about money, make it a little bit more open. Right? And then definitely, as we said at the end of last week, you negotiate obviously when you enter the job, but there should be opportunities to negotiate down the road, whether it's at the annual review or earlier, to think about asking for a salary increase, think about making a case for a salary increase or a promotion, and keep a look for those other perks. If salary isn't an option, or if it's can be a tightly scheduled, think about other things that would help you make your job allow you to do your job better, more effectively. And we talked about some of those last week, whether it's having an assistant or different equipment or more vacation days or more opportunities for professional development. Think about what can help you do your job well and ask for it. Okay. All right. So some final thoughts, and then I'll take questions because we're moved through this relatively quickly. In the list of things that affect us at work, we don't have control over that much. We have the most control over our own performance and our own professional development. And that's really what I've been talking about today is how can you perform at your highest levels, do the best job possible? How can you keep an eye on your professional development, take those opportunities as they come along to learn new things, whether it's on the job or through workshops or through professional organizations? How can you get better at the core skills that are vital to your job, that are important to you, that you enjoy doing? There's a lot of other things we don't have as much control over. Your title can change, your job description can change, both informally and less formally. Your manager, the person who hired me left about 6 weeks after I started. And, it's just, it's that classic thing. I had known her for a while because I'd been in other roles at Barnard. I was thrilled for her. She was moving to a much better opportunity, but I was like, hey, I just got here. So that can happen. Your company can downsize, expand, open a new office, get taken over by somebody else, completely change their focus. So there's all sorts of company changes that you have very little input into, but can have a big impact on you. And certainly industries are changing. I mean, all we have to do is take a look at the last 10 years, and whether you're looking at banking or journalism or media or teaching, or everything has just changed so much, both because of the recession and the response to it, and every single day the impact of the digital revolution is impacting the way all of us do our work. So there can be so many changes within the industry, and then of course the economy as a whole. Unemployment is low. I think wages finally budged a tiny bit upward, or more than a tiny bit upward in the last jobs report. So, things are on the upswing. There's a higher demand for particular, people in particular roles. But some of those habits that employers acquired during the recession, when it was an employer's market, have not gone away, and make it still difficult for potential employees to jump through a lot of hoops. So, things, and who knows where we're headed with the typical ups and downs of the economy, as well as the impact of specific policies as they unfold over the next months and years. So all of this is to say, focus on the things you have control over, your performance, your professional development, which will help you take in stride some of these things you have less control over. And my final point being, if you make career development an ongoing part of your professional life, if you give this occasional thought once a month, a couple times a year, you'll be in a better position when something unexpected happens. And that could be a positive thing. You could be offered a promotion or headhunted for a different organization that you never dreamed would be interested in you. It could be a really positive thing, or it could be negative. It could be layoffs. It could be a manager leaving and somebody horrible coming to take her place. We all know the negative things that can happen. But regardless, when these things happen that you don't have control over, if you've been paying some attention to your career development, it puts you in a better position. And it allows you to give yourself options, hopefully more options than you would have had prior. So regardless of that, I do not mean to be implying that you need to be, as I've said repeatedly, you don't need to be thinking about this constantly, but you want to build it into your professional routine where you can, and also know that, nothing can completely prepare you for the unexpected, and we are here when that unexpected comes along. So if you get fired, if you get laid off, if you get offered an amazing promotion and you think there's no way you can do it, those are all good times to reach out to myself or to Beyond Barnard in general and say, hey, help, I need to make a decision, I need to find a new job, I need to consider my options, and we are in fact here. Okay, next steps, the series is over. This is our final session, at least for now. I'll be doing another series. It's a little up in the air whether it'll be similar or whether we'll start doing some other topics as well. I would invite you to share your feedback and future topic ideas with us. I will send you an evaluation of this webinar series in the next 24 to 48 hours. And so I would appreciate you filling that out. That'll give us valuable information. Certainly feel free to pass along the PowerPoints or recordings with fellow alumni. They don't even have to be alumni. You can certainly pass the information along. And I would absolutely, if I'm not already in individual contact with you, would absolutely love to hear your updates on your job search or any career shifts or negotiations that go on. So keep in touch. As I have said, each week advising appointments are available. You can hop on Handshake to make one online, or you can call the office directly. And the wait for appointments is still 1 to 2 weeks, and probably won't change for a while. in the process of beefing up our team a little bit. So thank you all so much. Let me do that, the thanks and the questions. If anybody does have any questions, I'm happy to take them now. Any thoughts, any advice you'd like to share with your fellow alumni who've been in on the webinar series? Okay, how do you switch to a completely different career without having majored in that field at Barnard? Great question. Okay. I mean, I should say the point that your major doesn't always determine, there's not always a direct connection between major and career. It sounds like maybe there was in there. Yeah. So, and the liberal arts education should prepare you in general for a number of things, and we can help you with those sort of general transferable skills. But I would say that this runs the gamut from the one answer, and the most expensive, both in terms of time and money, answer to this question would be graduate school. And there are some career shifts that probably can't be made without going and earning an additional degree. And we certainly can sort of talk to you about that. But short of that, there is a lot of other options sort of down a continuum. So short of doing a master's degree or a second master's in some cases, there are schools of professional studies that offer certificates or even just one-off courses where you can acquire skills that prepare you for the different career. And prior, sort of further back on the scale there are a number of online courses, some of them free, some of them inexpensive, some of them more expensive, where you can acquire the skills with flexibility and with more flexibility and opportunity. And then there are, much more focused to learn how to do X skill type of thing. So, and short of doing any of that, I mean, there's strategic volunteering, there's project-based work where you sort of start, you dip a toe into the new field by doing a side gig, which can then become your full-time gig, and you use that side gig to sort of acquire the skills you're going to need. So there's really a whole gamut of things that you can do, and certainly making a transition to a whole new field is something that's a really good thing to come into it beyond Barnard for advising on, because then we can talk about your individual situation. It looks like I have a little bit more info from you, which is Carissa. So a film graduate trying to find a job in finance. Interesting. So finance is interesting because if you're talking about big finance, big investment banking firms, or even, specific roles, then yeah, you might have to do some retraining, whether that's actually graduate school or, again, like I said, doing a certificate in accounting or financial analysis or business development. There's certainly a lot of courses and certificates out there short of going back to getting an MBA or another applicable graduate degree. But finance is a big enough umbrella that you also could potentially apply for a position that would tap into some of the skills you have from, from your major in film, from your work if you've been working in film. Sometimes a two-step process. You would stay within you could stay within the film industry, but take on a business role or a role that had financial skills as part of it. And then once you're in that role, not only are you learning on the job, but you could then take advantage of workshops and other educational opportunities to continue learning what you need to do. And then the next step would be to work more directly in finance. So there's a lot of possibilities. It's definitely, career transition is definitely a process, and you have to give some thought to it, and I'd be happy to follow up with you individually. And again, I should have repeated on the prior screen that advising is available obviously in person, but also over by the phone or Skype or other virtual method. Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for your participation today and in prior weeks, and I hope you found the series valuable. I should have also mentioned on what you can do next. If you haven't already connected to me on LinkedIn, feel free to send me a request. That can be a good start with your networking, because I'm connected to a lot of people in general, but a lot specifically of alumni in a variety of fields because of who comes to see me. So I'll see you on LinkedIn. I hope to see you at Barnard events, and possibly over the phone or whatever else can be helpful. Good luck. Stay in touch. Thanks.